Hello, welcome everyone. Happy New Year. And as each January, here's our popular How to Be Healthy in a New Year. So welcome, Brooke.
Thank you. My name is Brooke Seiz. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I have to remember the clinical part. I guess it's been since March, but that is my license now. I'm also a functional medicine certified nutrition provider. And those other letters there that I do somatic therapy. I also just got trained in EMDR this year, so that could be a fun class in the future, maybe on trauma therapy, somatic and EMDR therapy. This class, it's January, it's mid-January, and I don't know how many of you thought about intentions for the year. It's this time of year where sometimes I hear the approach of just starting a goal at any time of the year. It's also a time of year where sometimes we think about, the previous year and how we want the next year to go. I've been thinking about this in terms of the season because I've heard some clients say recently that it feels like at this time of year, it's strange to have something new starting. Like it's dark, it's cold, it was so snowy in Kansas City this last week. We were stuck inside. And so like to feel like new beginnings feels a little bit strange. That's more of a spring feeling, right? Winter, though, is a really great time for reflection. So I think that what we can aim towards, maybe for the purpose of today, is like reflecting on where you're at right now and kind of reflecting on what the last year has brought you or what surprised you. Maybe it was hard about last year and, things that caused you to head in a different direction than maybe you had intended. Or maybe you headed in a direction that was really a lot of growth. And so now you're kind of looking at what does this mean for next year? So that's what we'll do today. We're also going to talk about healthy weight and metabolism. And so the second half of the class will focus a little more on nutrition. First half, we will really talk about goals and intention setting. And I just kind of interrupted my introduction, I guess, with an introduction of the class. So, last thing I'll say about me is that I have a practice in Prairie Village, Kansas. I do a lot of trauma therapy, couples therapy, and also functional nutrition. All right, so jumping in. Goal setting. My biggest challenge is knowing what I want and believing that a goal is attainable and maintaining the discipline to carry out the tasks. So, the right goal is a goal that will light you up, it will give you energy and be the motivation to get it, and you'll have the motivation, or it will give you the motivation to get it done. I know that I have set goals that felt heavy before. That's probably not a great goal. That feels like, ugh, right? So, we're going for the opposite of that. We're going for, as you think through intentions for the year, what kind of lights me up? What makes me feel a little bit lighter? What gives me some energy and feels like a little bit of optimism as I head into this year? It will not come from your ego. Sometimes those ones that make us feel heavy come from our ego, come from what we think we should do. They might come from an external source instead of from within. Might be that we want to prove something to someone. Um, what we want are goals that come from our true desire that is authentic to our personality. The right goal will be aligned with your personal values and not reflect someone else's expectations of you. It is not someone else's goal that you think might work for you. It's the goal that already lives in you and it just needs to come out in the real world. So it's truly yours. I know that over the course of the last couple years, and this will probably continue for me over the course of the next 5, maybe 10, I've really been rethinking some of the goals I had in my career. I really kind of thought I wanted to grow and expand and have a bigger practice. And my kids are at an age and my life is at a point where I am questioning like what in my mid 40s, where's my energy at and what do I actually have capacity for? Also as a parent, like how much time do I want at home? How present do I want to be? And what is the reason I wanted to expand? What's the purpose of that? Is it for reasons that come from within me, or are there some old like desires to achieve? And maybe that's not really what needs to happen. I don't know yet. but these are the questions, right? And really kind of drilling down to what is it that is in alignment with who you are today, who you've grown to be, and where you're headed, and what is right for you with your reality and how
If
you.
if I if I can mention, sorry, I didn't know what was a good moment to jump in, but my husband is retiring in the spring, and we were kind of brainstorming together that trying to figure out meaningful retirement for him or activities for retirement. And
Mhm.
so I was just telling him, how they tell you the goals have to be measurable and attainable and this and that. And I just gave an example of like goals shouldn't be like next year I will lose 60 pounds. It should be I will walk every day half an hour. And my husband, he was like, what is the difference? Like at the end is the same thing. And I was like, it's totally overwhelming if you tell yourself I need to lose 60 pounds or 30 or whatever next year. And so he finally got it. So I'm kind of helping him to figure out what he wants to know and doesn't know about it yet.
Yes, that's awesome. It's so true. I mean, it happens in this office all the time with clients where they say, "Oh, I did like this little thing and this and this and this, but like, I don't know, I'm really not, I'm not quite on track." And I'm like, you just named like three things, in the last week that were implemented. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, those are achievements that are attainable, like you're saying, attainable.
Hmm.
Um, there's different ways that you can look at goals. This is a good segue into this. You can look at them as final destinations, like I will lose 60 pounds. You can look at them as means to your personal growth in terms of weight. We're talking about that today. What does that mean? Like, I will be able to get on the floor and play with my grandkids. What is the growth that's wanted there? Or I will feel just comfortable in my body. Um, when you take on this perspective that your goals are the catalysts of your personal growth journey, then they gain a whole new meaning and deeper meaning. Your goals help you develop new skills and new levels of mindset, and they build your confidence. They ought to help you learn how to deal with failures, help you discover your strengths and your weaknesses, and help connect to other people and learn how to ask for help. All of these can be effective catalysts of your personal growth and development. And did you hear how many times I said learn? Right? Goals sometimes are seen as something that we win or lose at. And really, they should be things that help us learn about ourselves. Whether we achieve the actual goal we laid out or not exactly, it's a means to growth and learning. When we take on this perspective, the outcome of the goals becomes less important than if you looked at your goals as destinations to reach. You realize that the person you are becoming, that the new version of you is the ultimate prize, that actually what you learn along the way is more important than achieving the actual goal. And if this
The-
perspective, yeah, go ahead.
as the Buddhists say, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to take some time to reflect on some questions to help us get towards this journey. As I mentioned, right, we often set goals based on what we think we're supposed to do or accomplish. We borrow the goals of other people, or we set goals based on other people's expectations of us. I have made the joke over the last, I don't know, 4 years or so, that like maybe I finally prove to myself that I'm worthy of being on the planet. And now I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do except maybe live and figure out what feels good because I love what I do for work. But over time, I could see sometimes that I was pushing myself or learning a thing because it felt like I should or I like needed to prove something to myself. And so identifying like again why we're setting the goal we're setting, why we're doing what we're doing. Sometimes it's a combination of I want to learn that thing and I also like want to prove something to myself or to someone else, which is okay. It's just knowing those things and then being able to decide what's right for us. We know that our goals are not really ours when when achieving them or accomplishing them starts to become energy draining, soul depleting. Um, that's a sign that maybe we need to rethink our goals. So, which part of your life are you satisfied with? And if you are watching this class or here now, you can take some notes if you'd like as we go through these questions. I would probably encourage you to maybe think about it. We can talk about it here a little bit and, and also go back and do a little more journaling on them. So, which part of your life are you satisfied with? Which parts? Which parts do you see the need for change? And this gives you some prompts right here, like what are you satisfied with in your career? What do you want to change in your career? What about relationships, hobbies, health, spirituality, learning, finances, community contributions? Then you can break this down and identify what top 3 areas you want to change. What are the top 3 areas? It changes from year to year. Sometimes you have a year where you really spend a lot of time focusing on relationships, or your personal life or growing friendships. And then it feels time to circle back towards like some career focus. Other times it might be the opposite, or it might be something different. You might finish school and it's time to look at finances and kind of what you're doing as you go forward. And then what specifically needs to change? And that kind of circles back to this question. What parts of this are you satisfied with, and which parts do you see the need for change in this specific area? And then what needs to change? And just dream a little bit when you do this. Sometimes we limit our thinking by saying like, well, that's probably not possible, so I'm not going to go there. But just dream a little bit. Ideally, what would you need to change, and what might that change look like? And then think forward, like play that forward. If those changes happen, what does it mean for your life if you make those changes? What does your life look like if you don't make those changes? I know I personally can throw this back to like I said after I had 2 kids, I remember saying to my husband, I either need, if we're going to do this third kid thing, we need to do it, or I need to go back to grad school because I feel like I've put off a lot of my career to have kids, kind of like slowed everything down, and I'm feeling the itch. So it's like now with the third kid, so I can get on with it or not. And had a third kid, and then pretty quickly after that went back to grad school. And I wasn't sure that was a good idea, but it was the choice at the time that was like, I can see this thing down the road of having a private practice and doing therapy in that private practice along with nutrition. But I don't know if this is a good idea with 3 little kids to go to grad school. And I definitely questioned that along the way. There were some sleepless nights and it was hard. But I think at that time I could see what does your life look like if you don't make these changes? And I knew that I wouldn't have agency over my job. And now that like all those kind of it was a good 4 years of hard work and then starting a business, probably 5 years of hard work. Now I can make my schedule and my kids are getting busier and in sports and soccer. So it was worth it, right? So play it forward because sometimes we just think of what's right in front of us and the challenge. It's like, oh, that's too hard, but maybe it is and maybe it's not. But play it forward and where do you want to get? I think at the time for me, I thought, well, I could do this when my kids are like teens or I can do this now. And it felt like it needed to happen then. And I'm glad that it did. Journal about these 5 questions. What's missing in my life currently? What would I regret if I were to disappear tomorrow? If I only had 1 year to live, what would I want to accomplish or experience? If I could become anyone I wanted, who would I choose to be and why? And if I never had to worry about money, what would I be doing all day? Now, do we get to like jump in and do those things? No, not entirely, right? Because we do have to have money to get by. But these kind of help you dream a little bit and get towards where your heart is. What would bring more joy or peace or contentment or rest? And then we shift into what are your favorite memories in life? List moments that evoke feelings of joy, pride, for fulfillment, satisfaction, and look for themes. Are we needing more, you know, accomplishment? Are we needing more adventure? I remember towards the end of that phase of like going to school and doing all those career things that I was doing all the health, I've been in nutrition for a long time. And so I've always had like a pretty solid self-care plan and stay on track with that and with sleep. I was moving towards like some accomplishment, career goals. And I kind of like went through a phase. I think I was just like really tired all the time and I was getting good sleep and I was eating well. So it's like, why am I so tired all the time? Well, I got back to singing. And for me, that was play, right? So this shows like hiking trips with friends, adventure, connection. I had lost track of playing in motherhood and working. Still taking care of myself, seemed like everything was in order, but totally lost track of like, I need to go do things for no productive purpose other than that it's just something I love. So maybe that's an area that you can bring more in this year. What do you enjoy doing? List activities and look for themes. And what are your values? What are your top 5 values? And you can look up pretty easily if you just Google like values list. You'll find, it'll kind of go through a whole lot of different things, and that might help prompt you to identify what your top 5 values are. And then what are ideas to help support these values in your life? Here's a thought too that I'll just throw in because I remember hearing this, it might have been last year or the year before. I was at a talk and they were talking about a morning routine, which can be short, could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But the person teaching or doing the talk said, pick your top 5 values and then create your morning routine around them. Give a nod to each of your values. So, for example, she said, family is a top value of hers. And so every morning she's really close with her mom, but she doesn't get to see her mom a lot because she had kids. And she said, I text my mom every morning. Like it's just I don't expect a response. It's just like sending a thought or just connecting. Takes 10, 15 seconds. So that's the nod to family. Then there was like, a nod to self-care, like mindfulness or meditation or something done, just a 1 minute meditation or breathing. So just what are the top 5 values and how can I kind of give a nod to those every morning and kind of remind myself that those are important to me. That's one idea to support those values in your life. I also one year went to a talk where at the beginning of the year, they talked about the word of the year. There's a little book. Somebody I forget his name right now, but he wrote a book on the word of the year and said to pick out one word for the year. Like what word resonates is the word of the year that you want to kind of manifest in your year. And to use this word like the sun that's shining on all areas of your life. And so that as you think about your values and what is your goal and intention in every area of your life, especially the 3 that you most want to grow in. So that's another one, is you can think through like a word that resonates. Oh, and to go back to this, some value ideas just to like start to trigger your thinking are authenticity, compassion, connection, creativity. Those are some things. Those are also, if you want words, things like dream, balance, strength, purpose, expansion. adventure, connection, perseverance, right? Just kind of something that's like this is like really what I want to layer over everything for my year. What wellness goals and intentions do you have for this year? So, we're going to get into a little bit of nutrition, nutrition for healthy weight. We kind of really started with general goals and intentions. And so, when we think about goals and intentions, those can go towards all areas of life. But in terms of wellness, what goals and intentions do you have this year? And what we eat, what we put in our body, it affects our mind, it affects our mood, it affects our ability to focus, it affects our ability to sleep. And so it will support goals in other areas of our life. For example, if we have a goal to change our job, what is going to help us feel the confidence and the strength and the motivation to do that? Lots of things, right? But one of them is feeling good, is just feeling good and energetic and optimistic. And I've noticed that some people feel that mind body connection kind of more than others. Like some people are really impacted in what they eat and how that affects their energy and their mood the next day or that day. Some people maybe don't feel it quite as much. For all of us, though, it can have a positive impact. So let's talk about some strategies to help get your mind working on what might be some good wellness intentions or goals for you this year. There's
I'm
always,
just, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I just want to say, I'm just noticing because I know this happened before, I don't get any sunlight and it influences me so much, because there is the little sunlight driving to work and I usually wear sunglasses, which is probably not a good idea. And, I sit in the uh, basement all day and then it's dark when I drive home. So I totally see, even though I take vitamin D and everything, I should get some of those lamps or something. But the sunlight is big for me.
yes, yep. I think that those lamps, I have one in here actually. It's like facing me right now. Um, and it works. It's not super big. I do see an impact. Those ones that are like a full square that you
Uh,
can turn on, like really kind of seem to
but
work well.
I'm just afraid, like 7 years from now, they will say, "Oh, this is a really unhealthy types of rays.
Right.
Don't go to infrared saunas anymore. They are really bad." So I just wonder what they will come up with in few years.
Right. We never
So.
know for sure, right? Yeah. I can say like I don't go to infrared sauna like super regularly, but I do notice when I go that I feel positive after. Like I feel more kind of optimistic. It feels good to me physically and mentally. So, um, if you're worried about it, maybe it can be something that's like try it out, but just do it here.
Well, I've been to them before and I stopped going because I read articles about electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
Actually, we had a talk here in November with an MD about electromagnetic field,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
and I love like a regular sauna, but and I cannot even go for a walk during lunchtime, which I usually do because everything is a slideshow.
Right.
So
Right. Talks at lunchtime. Yes. Yep. I get it. Yeah. So in here, there's when we start getting into talking about healthy weight, there's always this old calories in, calories out mentality, which is still out there. As I still have folks come in and say that they're like at medical visits or things where they truly are doing the dietary changes or eating healthy amount of calories a day and they're not losing weight and they're getting comments that ultimately make them feel shamed for not doing what they're supposed to do, but they are doing what they're supposed to do. So it's like, well, you're doing it wrong instead of let's dig deeper and figure out what's going on in your body. And maybe this calories in, calories out thing is not really the answer, which it can work, but it also often doesn't work because of what's going on with hormones or gut health or other factors. So today what we will talk about in terms of actual calories is the macronutrients and the micronutrients and how those foods impact our hormones and how to eat a balance of macronutrients that can help hormones shift in a way that helps our weight usually stabilize to where we might want it to be. It's not as simple, I know, for many people, which is why functional medicine can be such a great approach, is that if you're doing the things, you're eating a whole foods based food plan and you're eating what we're going to talk about today, like a balance of carbohydrate to fat to protein that should be helping you get in the direction that you need to go and it's not working, dig deeper. It's not probably not something that you're doing wrong. It could be some adjustments with food, but it may also be what's going on in the body. And that just needs to get sorted out. We will also talk about exercise a little bit. So, portioning a meal. I'm trying to find my cursor here, sneaking around. Okay. We've got, I use this little portion plate sometimes, and this is just a general starting guide. This will adjust based on someone's goals, current health or health conditions, and, other factors in their health, medical and health history. For almost everyone, though, we can start with half a plate of non-starchy veggies. It's a really great starting point. The only time I really don't do that is if somebody has IBD or maybe IBS or some more like gut issues going on and you're just not tolerating vegetables, then that's an area that we might adjust some. But usually in that case, we would be eating very cooked or pureed vegetables. We would still be getting them in. We would just be kind of changing the form. Otherwise, half a plate of non-starchy vegetables, which is everything except potatoes. It's also accepting other starchy things that aren't as common, like taro. I always say that both ways. How do you say that, Magda?
Well,
Taro.
don't ask me on any sort of a talk thingy. I think
Um,
it's taro. In Hawaii, they say taro.
Taro. Okay. So taro or any of those other like starchy tubers. Um, a lot of Americans are eating potatoes in that food in that area. So just anything but that. So leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, carrots, bell peppers, all of that can be in that half a plate of veggies, non-starchy veggies. Then we have a palm-sized portion of protein, which is about 20 to 25 grams typically. And that is about what we can utilize at one sitting. We don't store protein. And so, but we could use more protein every 2 to 3 hours potentially. So I just always guide folks by saying that every time you eat a meal or snack is a good opportunity for some protein. But it doesn't need to be an excessive amount of protein because if we eat more than we can use at one sitting, our body will just convert that into sugar anyway. And so palm-sized portion is a good guide. Healthy fats, and that can be olive oil on your veggies. It can be a little bit of grass-fed butter on the veggies. It can be avocado or guacamole or nuts or seeds. And then we have the additional carbohydrate, and that would be things like the starchy vegetables like potatoes or taro, and also grains like rice, quinoa, buckwheat, anything like that would fall under additional carbs. And then, of course, there's like a world of additional carbs. That's the processed food area. We're not aiming for that, like the breads and the pastas and the pastries and the cookies and the cakes. But some of that will probably float into meals, especially for special events and things like that. So that would go there in the additional carbs.
Or like squashes. We like squashes
Yes.
because they're
Squash
orange.
carbs. Yep. Yeah, squash can go in the additional carbs like along with the potatoes. Yep.
Also, we like those orange, I mean, the purple potatoes. You know which ones
And
I mean? The Japanese ones.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are my favorite, I think, in like a whole
me too.
sweet potato. Yeah.
They look like beets, but they are not beets.
Yes. Yeah, I really like those. Yeah. And so when we look at this, the half plate of veggies and the palm size of protein pretty much applies to any type of like diet that you eat, any type of food plan that you eat, whether it's paleo or vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian or whole foods, Mediterranean. We want to go for about that, 20 grams of protein-ish, 15 to 25. Know that if you're vegan or vegetarian, the protein sources will come wrapped up with some of the additional carbs. So the foods will kind of have a little bit of both, like beans will have some of the additional carbs and some protein. And then the carbs and the fats, those are the two that carbs and fats both provide our body with energy. Fat is more slower burning, but longer lasting. Carbs are fast burning and don't last as long. And so if you are an athlete, you're going to do more carbs. If you are pregnant, more carbs. If you are diabetic, less carbs, more healthy fat. So it's really going to depend on health factors when it comes to like how we balance the macronutrients. Starting with just like a tablespoon or two of healthy fat or like an avocado, half an avocado, and then, a cup, half a cup of additional carbs, depending on what it is. If it's potato, do a cup. Maybe if it's grains, do half a cup. You might need more than that. You might need less than that. So I'm just like really generally speaking right now, but this is a starting point.
And if I may say now,
Yeah.
the science and all these influencers, like there is the famous MD talking about protein, how as we age more and more, it's more and more important to have protein,
Mm-hmm.
so that's there.
Yep, definitely. It helps to maintain muscle mass as we age.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
a
You
good
know
amount.
which one I mean, right?
I
Which
think
the
so.
like
Influencer, you mean, or the?
well, she's an MD, but she's all into like lifting weights and to prevent muscle loss.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then these next slides just go through kind of the portion plate of, here are some examples of when we say vegetables, non-starchy vegetables. Summer squash, onions, mushrooms, nightshades, root vegetables. I put the winter squashes in here. They are some extra carbohydrate, depending though if you need a little more, like if you're diabetic and you're eating low carb, then I'd put the winter squashes in extra carbs. Um, if you're kind of, you can kind of go either way. What I will say, and I think I have a slide in here on that, is that actually let me hold. I'll circle back to that in terms of like if you're actually looking at your carb amounts, then I can give you some ranges. And then it gives you serving sizes. So I talked about how the body doesn't store protein, but we want to eat it regularly, right? We can aim for 15 to 25 or 20 to 25 grams at meals. And that amount would be 3 eggs. So it's kind of higher, more eggs if you're doing eggs, or 3 to 4 ounces of salmon or meat. You can also use some cheese for protein, just depending what works for you. I always like how Chris Kresser talks about neutral foods. He has this phrase of like, there's these gray area or neutral foods, meaning when people say, is dairy healthy for me? He says like, that's in the neutral food category because for some people it's not healthy at all. They're really, they're really sensitive to it or lactose intolerant. For other people, it's a really healthy food. And some of that is based on genetics, based on gut health, and some other factors.
I think we talked in the past. I read the book Milk. It's
Mhm.
like a 300-page book about milk,
Uh-huh.
like different cows and, like all these people the babies who died from milk in New York in 1800s. But they said milk is very controversial uh, subject because chemically they don't even know what is all in it, how they are all these sugars and hormones. It hasn't been fully researched yet.
Yeah. Yes. So many, it's so different depending on the source too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's very inflammatory
Uh-huh.
for to some people. So yeah, so I kind of after reading the book, I'm kind of staying away from it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been able to have dairy. I can get by with a little bit of sheep or goat dairy,
Mm,
like if it's once, couple times a month.
mm,
Start pushing past that, it gets a little
mm.
problematic. So then fats, we've got avocados, nuts, seeds, olives, different oils here. And we talked about that fat to carb ratio. If we're eating a little more healthy fat, we can drop the carbs a little bit. If we're eating more carbs, we can drop the fat. So that just depends on what works for you in terms of your health and your goals. I will say be careful with, like, I've seen this when keto got really popular. I kind of saw this happen where keto can be like a really great therapeutic approach to weight loss. But for some people who do fairly easily lose that weight, and especially cycling women, it can drain them over time. Like if it becomes a long-term approach and they are busy, and especially like at a phase of life where there's like, say, working mom, think working mom, type of women where they might be like just kind of on the edge of getting enough sleep every night and kind of go all day. That it can be a positive approach for a while, but sometimes over the long run it kind of negatively impacts their hormones and their adrenal function. So that's just something to be aware of. For folks who are diabetic, it can be a better long-term approach. For postmenopausal women and for men, it might be a better long-term approach, especially men. Most of the research on keto is in men, so it is an approach that can work pretty well, depending on someone's like body type and health factors. Fat can make veggies tasty. So it's great to add to veggies, can help increase eating veggies and also get some healthy fat in. My daughter always says, like, I say, what's your favorite veggies? And she says, when dad makes the veggies with curry sauce, which has like coconut, right, in the curry. So that's like, then she wants to eat the veggies. Gotta have the curry sauce. Probably because the healthy fat and the flavors, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Additional carbohydrates. Here's some, this was the chart I was mentioning, is that if we want a guide, and again, just use it as a guide, always go off of kind of what you're seeing with your weight, with your health and your energy and how you're feeling. Um, Very low carb would be considered like a keto diet, and that's eating under 50 grams a day per women, under 65 grams a day for men. Really strict ketos under 20 net carbs, um, kind of like moderate ketos under 40 net carbs, and more relaxed ketos under 50. And the populations that do well with this approach are people with neurological issues like epilepsy and Alzheimer's. There's some studies showing improvement in those conditions with this food plan. And also severe blood sugar problems, which is speaking largely towards like diabetes, folks with diabetes. Type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is going to be different. Low carb is 50 to 75 net carbs in women or 65 to 100 in men. This is great for weight loss, blood sugar regulation, mood disturbance, digestive issues. Moderate carb is a really good starting point. So if you're not really sure what to do, there are so many carbs in our world that if you haven't really been focusing on what you're eating, moderate carb will feel like very low because, the typical American diet just has probably definitely over 200 grams a day in there. And so moderate carb or like even 100 grams a day can feel pretty low. So start at 150 or 100 or 125 if you're kind of just, if you're tracking and you want to kind of see how you feel. Um, Make that net carbs because that allows for you to have a little more total, a little more carbs that have high fiber. This is for folks who are generally healthy, want to maintain weight. People with adrenal fatigue, even if you're wanting to lose weight, I wouldn't go too low. That's what I was mentioning with people who've been like kind of stressed or going through a lot of stress or at a phase of life that's very energy intensive, is to be careful with low carb and maybe go more moderate. hypothyroid or familial hypercholesterolemia. So that would be genetic high cholesterol. Needs to be genetic, which sometimes folks think that they have high cholesterol. That's genetic, but it's not actually due to a genetic mutation. So if it's diagnosed as familial hypercholesterolemia, then this would be a good approach. And then high carb would be for pregnancy athletes, people trying to gain weight or really fast metabolism. I've had some women, definitely more of a handful of men who they just are can have a very fast metabolism and they need to eat all the time. So they kind of need to get some more carbs in just to maintain weight. Additional carbs in here, you can see fruit is in there, whole grains, beans, all of those fall in there. Remember to drink lots of water, half your body weight in ounces. So take your body weight and divide it in half. If you're 150 pounds, you want 75 ounces of water per day, around in there. Consume warm drinks like herbal teas and green tea. You can do bone broth. You can infuse your water like this image here. Add some fruit to it. And then if you're drinking like caffeine or, maybe 1 cup a day, you could go with that half of body weight in ounces. But if you're drinking like a few cups of caffeine a day, you may need more water. Also, if you're on medications, you may need more water. We use water to metabolize those things, like caffeine and medications. So drink a little bit more, just make sure you're getting enough. Sometimes when we're thirsty, we think we're hungry. So try making sure you're drinking half your body weight in ounces. A lot of times, if you haven't been drinking a lot of water, folks will notice they actually get thirstier in the process of drinking more water. And that thirst cue kicks in, and then it's easier to track. You are a human being, not a human doing. So, mindfulness strategies. What are we doing to just be some of the time? Because our world wants us to do a lot. And more probably than ever in history. We have a lot of value around productivity and staying busy. And with technology and phones, I think about this a lot in therapy, is like there's so much ADHD diagnosis and so much anxiety and so many things that I often wonder as we're working on what's actually going on, like when we slow down in sessions and we're working on what happens when we sit with that feeling. And I've literally had people be like, I want to pick up my phone. Okay, let's notice that impulse, right? Because we're able to not to we're able to do things to distract ourselves or to just do instead of just be with whatever's passing through, even if it's discomfort or an emotion that doesn't feel great or whatever. It's really easy to stay busy in our world now. And so I think mindfulness strategies are more important than ever in terms of um, slowing our mind down and being able to stay present in the moment. And if we're able to do that, then we're able to be with the things that come up, regardless of what it is, and work through that. So meditation or mindfulness practices of any kind, whether it's qigong or tai chi or different types of transcendental meditation or yoga or just sitting quietly and doing a breathing exercise, whatever works for you. Sometimes it comes out of your spiritual practice or religious beliefs. Sometimes it comes out of what you've just found that feels good to you, but wherever it comes from, incorporating something that helps you slow down is really important. I have just had this happen in the last week because I adopted 2 bunnies and they are so cute and they are huge. They're really big bunnies. They're the size of an average size cat. And every morning and evening, I need to let them out to explore around the family room and check things out and kind of run a little bit. And it makes me, because bunnies they don't really, I don't know for any of you who've had bunnies, they don't like to be petted much. They don't really want to cuddle or be picked up. They're very curious about you though, but they won't come sniff around you and nibble on your pants or whatever unless you're sitting and you're quiet and you're relaxed. And they can sense that. And so in our house, I'll let them out in the morning to where they can explore, and they won't come out of their enclosure while we're all walking around getting ready. And they will come out once it quiets down and one or two people sit down on the floor. And once we sit down, they're like, okay, I'll come out. So it is giving me this this time where I need to just pause. Even if I feel like I have 100 things to do, if I want them to get some exercise, I need to sit down and pause. So I'll sit down with my tea, with my computer, and like take that little bit of time before the day starts to kind of let my system calm down and quiet because they let me know when I'm not, because they won't come out. So it's pretty cool. If you need a little creature to help you relax, bunnies are a good one. Some other lifestyle approaches that have been effective in supporting psychological health and our brain, the physical health of our brain, positive thinking actually alters immune function, decreases stress, and supports a healthy pain response. So we were talking about morning routines. One thing, and as a trauma therapist, sometimes it's like if you're not feeling positive, I think that's worth being with as well. But in the morning, one thing that I often do is just like a check-in. And so it's like, okay, if I'm feeling not like positive thoughts don't kind of show up, I'll just like, okay, that's okay. I'm going to take some deep breaths and check in with where in my body it feels so good to lie on this bed. Can I find something that feels like neutral to nice in the moment, even if it's not some sort of like ultimate positive affirmation? So where can I shift into either some presence or maybe some positivity? Exercise, physical activity, adequate sleep. In one study, 84% of people suffering from occasional sadness had sleep disturbances. So the more we can do for our sleep really helps our mood. Gratitude journaling is a way to get towards positivity. So circling back to our goals or our intentions, what is your word that you picked? Or think about that, and then you can circle back with a word. And then in terms of wellness, what SMART goal comes to mind? So SMART is sustainable, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive or timely, which means that it's something that we can do this week. So it's not, as you were saying, Magda, losing 60 pounds, right? It isn't a SMART goal. That's like a long-term intention. A SMART goal is something like I'm going to get up this week and I'm going to walk for 10 minutes every morning. And if that feels attainable and realistic, then it's a good one. I fought this past year against like my practice getting busier and me trying to make it to the gym. And I finally, like over the holidays, had time to like go like, this isn't working. I'm not exercising the way I used to. So I ordered the stuff. I have it all at home. I shortened my workouts, figured out a plan that was like, okay, now this week I'm going to get up and do 2 workouts in the week that are half the amount of time I used to do, right? And slowly work back into things. It is also okay. So that being said, SMART goals, right? It's also okay if you're not sure what those SMART goals are yet to sit with an overarching intention. It's okay to have those overarching intentions because it helps you create the SMART goals. And so it's not to say like it's not okay to say I want to lose 60 pounds. We can put that, but I would put that like not so much as a goal, but like an overarching intention that we don't need to stay super attached to, but we can kind of work towards and then learn as we go how that's shifting and changing or not. What are the steps? Those are going to be your SMART goals. What will get you towards that intention or goal? pick one thing to do this week towards that end. And that takes us to the end of our class. And I know, I don't know if there's anything you want to chat or you want to throw in here at the end, Magda.
No, this was very good. This is very helpful. I'm sure everybody will find it helpful. And we have you scheduled for March. So,
Yeah.
so we'll just stop recording and stay on. I want to mention something. Thank
Okay.
you very much, Brooke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.